Do you think your problem is procrastination? What if I told you it's not exactly that? Postponing tasks might just be the tip of the iceberg, with deeper causes like anxiety or insecurity. Quick fixes to beat laziness don't work because the issue is more complex. So, let's understand what's really going on together. How are you feeling today? Tell me in the comments. Procrastination isn't just laziness. In fact, it's a symptom of something deeper, like anxiety, low self-esteem, or even depression. Think about someone who delays important tasks all the time. The real problem isn't the task itself, but the feelings of inadequacy that come up when facing it. It's not the act of delaying that counts, but what's behind that decision. When you realize you're procrastinating, the question to ask is, why am I avoiding this? Often, the answer reveals a fear of failure or a sense of being unable to handle the challenge. For instance, when you put off starting a big project, is it because the task is difficult, or are you afraid you're not up to it? Reflecting is already a first step in understanding what's holding you back. Procrastination can also be a defense mechanism. After all, it's easier to blame lack of time than to face the possibility of not being good enough. Who hasn't delayed replying to an important email because they didn't know exactly what to say? Procrastination can indeed be a mask for deeper insecurities. Now, imagine that you're putting off starting a new diet. On the surface, it seems like pure laziness, but maybe the fear is failing again after so many unsuccessful attempts. In this case, procrastination protects you from the feeling of defeat. Similarly, when you avoid a tough conversation, you're not just delaying the conflict, but the uncomfortable emotions it might bring. Instead of feeling guilty about procrastinating, why not approach it with curiosity? This approach changes the game. It's no longer about laziness, but about self-awareness. A practical exercise would be, for example, to do a quick self-analysis. Instead of forcing yourself to act, ask yourself what's really holding you back. This is a way to understand the real reason behind the delay. Interestingly, many people believe that leaving everything to the last minute helps them handle pressure better. But is it really? Or is it just an excuse to avoid the fear of tackling the task head-on? That's why I suggest a more compassionate approach. Understand procrastination as a symptom to be understood, not simply eliminated. Speaking of eliminating, there are effective ways to deal with it. During today's video, besides the main topics, I'd like to share something that has made a difference for me. Recently, I started using CineBoost, which has been helping me improve focus, energy, and even reduce anxiety in my daily life. If you're interested in learning more, take a look at the pinned comment, and the best part is, you only pay for shipping. It's common to see self-help courses simplifying procrastination as mere laziness. But is that really it? The truth is, this approach overlooks the deeper reasons behind postponing tasks. Imagine someone struggling to start an activity, even knowing its importance. Is this person just being lazy, or is there something more complex happening? These courses often offer superficial solutions, promising to cure laziness without addressing the root of the problem. It's like giving a band-aid to someone with a deep wound. It covers the symptom, but doesn't solve the cause. This makes many people feel even guiltier for not being able to overcome procrastination quickly. In reality, the solution is in identifying what's causing this inertia. Procrastination can result from a range of factors, such as fear of failure, lack of confidence, or even a feeling of inadequacy. That's why trying to combat only the behavior of postponing isn't effective. For many, the real problem is emotional, and the solution requires self-understanding. For example, a young person avoiding studying for an exam might actually be dealing with the fear of failing. Ignoring the emotional causes is a common mistake and can be harmful. The true overcoming of procrastination begins with understanding the emotions behind it. Instead of following generic methods, it's more effective to personalize the approach. A practical tip? Try identifying a thought or emotion that comes up when you're about to delay a task. This analysis is already an important step to change behavior. Another point that isn't talked about much is how social pressure intensifies procrastination. Many people feel they need to be productive all the time to fit into the ideal model. This pressure can create even more resistance. Instead of following ready-made formulas, it would be healthier to question what society defines as productivity. This helps to relieve the weight of external and internal judgment. The simplistic approach of calling procrastination laziness ends up reinforcing stigmas and feelings of inadequacy. Therefore, the proposal here is to go beyond quick fixes and embrace a deeper self-awareness process. After all, understanding yourself is the key to transforming any behavior. Social pressure is one of the biggest forces behind procrastination, especially among young people aged 15 to 30. With so many expectations imposed by society, such as achieving quick success or being productive all the time, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Imagine a young person who needs to choose a career at 18. That's a lot of pressure for someone who's still figuring out who they are, isn't it? These expectations are often unrealistic. The idea that you need to be somebody before 30 only increases anxiety and, consequently, procrastination. When a person feels they can't meet these demands, they may end up paralyzed, avoiding tasks that remind them of these expectations. A classic example is the young person who delays starting a new course out of fear of failing and disappointing others. Pressure can also come from constant comparisons on social media, where everyone seems to be living a perfect life. The feeling of inadequacy is almost inevitable, and for many, procrastination ends up being a response to the fear of not fitting into this ideal standard. If you've ever avoided posting something because you thought it wasn't good enough, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Curiously, some people use procrastination as a form of resistance. Instead of simply meeting social expectations, they delay what doesn't make sense to them. It may be an unconscious way of preserving their own identity, even if, in the long run, it creates frustration. The challenge is to find a balance between meeting expectations and maintaining authenticity. A practical solution is to redefine what success means for you. You don't have to follow the conventional model of success. Instead, set personal goals that align with your values and interests. If the goal is to learn something new, start slowly, with a short online course, for example. The important thing is to start, even if with small steps. When expectations come with support and understanding, procrastination can be more easily overcome. Positive encouragement is a powerful antidote against pressure, helping to create a more welcoming environment for personal growth. And speaking of overcoming, it's interesting to note how self-sabotage can arise in similar situations. Procrastination is often not just a delay, it's a form of self-sabotage. It's like, unconsciously, we're protecting ourselves from potential failures or frustrations. When a task seems too challenging or even tedious, the brain prefers to avoid the discomfort. For example, by putting off starting a complex project, you temporarily escape the anxiety it causes. Interestingly, this behavior is more common than one might think. Self-sabotage is a way of dealing with negative emotions, like the fear of failure or of not being perfect. Think of someone who knows they need to study for an important test, but keeps postponing it. They're actually avoiding the discomfort of dealing with challenging content, protecting themselves from potential failure. Another important aspect is the relationship between procrastination and self-criticism. The more someone criticizes themselves for delaying tasks, the stronger the cycle of self-sabotage becomes. This creates a snowball effect, where the initial delay turns into an even greater burden over time. Therefore, it's essential to adopt a more compassionate approach towards oneself, recognizing that it's necessary to face these emotions, not just the tasks. A practical example for breaking this cycle is to start with small actions. If the task seems huge and daunting, why not break it into smaller parts? If you're avoiding writing a 10-page report, start with the title and introduction. This reduces the feeling of being overwhelmed and takes the first step towards completion. Small victories are crucial for overcoming self-sabotage. Additionally, it's important to create a work environment that motivates you to act, rather than sabotages you. Keep only what's necessary for the task in view, avoiding distractions like social media. This helps maintain focus and reduces the temptation to postpone what needs to be done. After all, the environment around you has a direct impact on behavior. Understanding that procrastination is a form of emotional protection makes it easier to approach it with empathy. The goal is to go beyond simply taking action and to understand what's preventing you from moving forward. And speaking of moving forward, there are some practical strategies to tackle this challenge. Breaking tasks into smaller parts is one of the most effective strategies to combat procrastination. When a task seems enormous, it creates anxiety and blocks action. But by slicing the task into smaller pieces, you reduce the pressure and make it easier to start. For example, instead of trying to write an entire article at once, start with the title, then the first paragraph, and so on. Another trick is to set clear deadlines for each part of the task. This technique not only organizes the workflow, but also creates a sense of urgency, which is essential to combat delay. Imagine a student who needs to study for a final exam. Instead of leaving everything for the last week, they can divide the content into daily topics with well-defined deadlines. Rewarding yourself after completing each stage is a way of reinforcing positive behavior. After all, the brain loves rewards. It can be something simple, like a coffee break or watching an episode of your favorite series. The important thing is to create a reward system that keeps motivation high. Frequent small rewards are more effective than waiting for a big reward at the end. An essential tip is not to wait for the perfect moment to start. The famous "I'll start tomorrow" is a common trap. In reality, there's no ideal moment, and the best thing is to simply start. Even if the beginning is slow or awkward, taking action already generates momentum that helps maintain progress. A practical example is the Pomodoro technique, where you work for 25 minutes and then take a short break. This helps you start even if you don't feel like it. Finally, remember that each step taken is a victory, no matter the size. Don't underestimate the power of gradual progress, because that's how great achievements are made. The idea is to focus on what's within your reach today, instead of worrying about the entire path ahead. Speaking of the journey, rest is also essential to maintain energy and avoid burnout. Rest is an essential pillar for maintaining productivity and avoiding burnout. Often, in the rush of everyday life, it's neglected in favor of efficiency. But without adequate rest, the body and mind become overloaded, which increases procrastination. It's like trying to drive a car with an empty tank. You can't go very far. Leisure also plays a crucial role. It's not just about taking a break, but truly enjoying free time to recharge. Activities that bring pleasure, like reading an interesting book or going for a walk in the park, help release accumulated stress. This, in turn, reduces the feeling of being overwhelmed and makes it easier to return to tasks. Another important factor is sleep. Quality sleep directly impacts the ability to concentrate and make decisions. Sleeping well isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. A regular sleep routine improves focus and productivity during the day, making tasks less tiring and less prone to postponement. If you have trouble sleeping, why not try guided meditation or a warm bath before bed? Mental rest is also essential. Practicing activities like meditation or yoga can help clear the mind and reduce anxiety. Even a light outdoor walk brings significant benefits. The mind needs breaks to process information and reorganize itself. So, schedule some time to simply do nothing, allowing the brain to recharge. When rest and leisure are part of the routine, it's easier to maintain a healthy work rhythm. Remember, productivity isn't just about doing more, but doing better. And speaking of doing better, sometimes it's necessary to change the approach when current strategies aren't working. If a strategy isn't working, persisting with it can be more harmful than productive. Often, forcing yourself to continue with a method that doesn't bring results creates frustration and more procrastination. Sometimes, it's necessary to recognize that it's time to try something different. Imagine a student spending hours reviewing the same material without absorbing it. Maybe it's time to try a new study style. When an approach becomes an obstacle, it's time to explore alternatives. For instance, if the Pomodoro technique isn't helping you focus, it might be interesting to experiment with longer or shorter work blocks. Flexibility is essential to adapt to your own needs. Remember, the best strategy is the one that works for you, not necessarily for everyone. Changing the approach also means adjusting expectations. If you're trying to tackle a large and complex project, how about breaking it into smaller parts and adjusting the plan as you go along? This reduces the task's weight and helps maintain motivation. Sometimes, a small adjustment in how you approach a task can make a big difference. It's essential to be open to new tools and techniques. If you're stuck in a cycle of procrastination, it might be helpful to try something like mind mapping to organize ideas or a different productivity app to track progress. Trying new approaches helps discover what truly works for you, besides making the process more interesting and less monotonous. Remember that the important thing is not to give up. What may seem like a detour could actually be a more efficient route. Instead of feeling defeated when something doesn't work, view it as an opportunity to learn and adjust your path. After all, there's no single path to productivity, and everyone needs to find their own. Before you go, check out the other videos on the channel. There's much more content to help you truly overcome procrastination. And don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications so you don't miss any new tips. Oh, and about CineBoost. As I mentioned in the video, it has truly made a difference for my focus and energy. If you want to know more, take a look at the pinned comment. See you in the next video.